Ladies and gents, it's Benji here. Thank you for coming back. Today, I am bringing you a review of the brand new Paul Greengrass film, News of the World, starring Tom Hanks and Helena Zengel. But before getting to that, please remember to like, subscribe, and if you're feeling extra generous, just to ding that little bell. And also, follow my social medias by scanning the barcode, or by going directly to links in the comments, or by following the names that are on your screen. News of the World is about a man played by Tom Hanks, who's a civil veteran who now spends his days travelling from county to county, reading the news to the local people, when he discovers a girl who's been kidnapped by the people of Kiowa, and now Tom Hanks has to take her under his own wing and deliver her back to her aunt and uncle. Problem being, this little girl doesn't speak any sort of English, and isn't the easiest of people to get along with in general. So, News of the World. I'm afraid that I have to say I didn't like this one very much. It's a very well technically made film, but from a writing's perspective, this film is desperately struggling. But I'll go into the pros first. The score is fantastic. Loved it. It was by the great 8-time nominated James Newton Howard. It could sometimes get a little bit overbearing, but it didn't change the fact it was just a great throwback to classical Western scores. I really liked it. It was by far and away the best part of this film. Cinematography was also great. Really liked it. This one really monopolised the wide take perfectly. There are a couple shots in this film that were beautiful, and this is Paul Greengrass' first film that hasn't been shot by Barry Ackroyd, and I was really worried about this. I thought that maybe it would just seem a bit off, or maybe the new cinematography just won't be good when working with Paul Greengrass, because his films are shot in a very specific way. And I must say, there's almost no shaky cam. There's a lot of handheld cam, which is done very well, but very little shaky cam. There's one zoom in the film, and that's basically it. So it's very different to his other films that have been shot before, but it doesn't change the fact the cinematography is fantastic in this film, and Darius Wolski did a fantastic job, and I would happily see him shoot another Paul Greengrass film. Finding out the pros, I thought Hanks and Zegler were very good in their roles, and I loved their connection and the way they communicate with each other. Tom Hanks almost views her as his therapist because she can't understand what he's saying, but he often tells her what he thinks of the world and how he thinks that she should go about life, kind of lessons he's learned. That was a very good way to get out character of him. It was one of the only very few things in the writing that I liked. I have two cons with this film, but the thing is, they're big cons, and it made me really struggle with my enjoyment of it. Firstly, I'm going to go into the milder the ones first, and then go into my big issue with this film. Some of the characters, especially some of the villains' characters, especially the main one you see at the start, if you've seen the film you know what I'm talking about, are extremely cartoonish. I understand a lot of westerns are cartoonish, and it won't be a problem. Problem is, News of the World is presenting itself as quite a serious film, but it wants to have its cake and eat it too, because it has these very cartoonish characters that you just wouldn't see in the real life world. And it just really pissed me off because it was just lousy writing. And talking about lousy writing, I'm about to go into my main issue with the film. I understand this is filmed to an extent, but things just happen in this film for the sake of it, just to move the story along. And I understand that films just kind of have to do that to an extent, but this film really does it. I'm going to read you out a couple of examples, which aren't spoilers. I've tried to choose the least spoilery ones, but if you really don't want to hear it, then please, by all means, skip to the time on your screen. For example, there's a part in it where Hanks takes the girl to a hotel, and in this hotel there's a restaurant. The little girl's eating there with her hands, and then a woman comes over, and he's like, oh, who is she? And he's like, oh, her name's Joanna. And then she's like, what language does she speak? And he's like, Kiowa. And she can just magically speak Kiowa, so then he can talk to her and then just get all this information out of her to help drive the story forward. Another example is so Tom Hanks's character's carriage, one of the wheels loosen and it falls off, and because of that it just somehow it just magically stops directly outside of some place that this girl knows. And I've got more examples on my phone, but I'm not going to read any more out, because otherwise I'll be going on for ages, and I don't want to spoil too much for people. But it was just very lousy writing, and I think Paul Greengrass is a very, very good director, but from the work I've seen that he's written, it's never all that good. Your 1993 isn't too bad, but that being said, that's not much of a writing film. It's much more of a technical film. Jason Bourne, I liked it. It had problems with writing though. Same goes for 22nd of July. And then Luke Davies was the other writer. I'm not the biggest fan of him, or his... Well, maybe not him, but not his work. I didn't like Beautiful Boy that much. I wasn't a fan of Lion. I thought Life was okay. So this is just clearly a project where the people who were writing the film just weren't the people for it. I just did not believe this screenplay at all. It is not organic at all. It's like the film Crash. Obviously, they're both very different films, but obviously, one of the many complaints with that film is that Crash is extremely unorganic and how things play out throughout the film. News of the World is the Western version of that. But when all is said and done, ladies and gents, and you balance out the pros with the cons, you kind of find yourself here. It's just an okay film. And because of the fact it's an okay film, I'm going to give it the middle of the road rating of a 5 out of 10. If you're not as bothered by me by lousy writing, or you just love Tom Hanks and you like to watch films with all these like nice feel good moments and Mr. Nice Man, like my mum, you may love this film, but it really wasn't for me, and I just couldn't get past the bad writing. And if this film does get in for Best Adapted Screenplay at the Oscars, that will be a bit of a joke. If you want to watch News of the World in the UK, it's available on Netflix, and around the world, I don't know which other countries it's available on Netflix, but I do know that in places like the States, it's available to rent on demand if you're still curious and watching it. But that was my review for News of the World. Remember to like, subscribe, and maybe even comment if you're feeling so generous. But until then, so long, ladies and gents.